So we were kind of finding a second wave of psychedelia, but at around the same time, I think some of the drugs were kind of getting kind of crazy, and I had to take a break, and I went into rehab.
Also, some lifestyle changes went down at some point before the Neurotica album. We gave up all of our hijinks, and we got on the straight and narrow. I got sober at 19. So before I was even legally able to go drink in a bar.
When we decided to go straight edge, we weren't politically straight edge, but when we went straight edge, that's when we started writing the Neurotica album, which was our most psychedelic album to date.
Ironically.
We're always just trying to get under people's skin, because we always had all these like weird, mystical, absurdist, there's this kind of mysticism surrounding everything. And a lot of people thought we were like being really deep, but when we were it was more, I wouldn't say comedy, but it was like we're using our humor genes. And musically, it was just like whatever kind of came out, because it was a really weird band. We were like, Roy had this kind of Keith Moonish thing. Robert has this eccentric thing, and Steven was probably the most solid musician. So yeah, I mean, it's hard when you're working with when everyone's a total weirdo, but you're pulling in all these weird influences, taking them out of context and putting them into a new context. That's what we started to really do on that.
It was easier to be obscure then. And I think that's one of the ways we found other people, that like-minded people, were the references. Jesus Christ Superstar was crucified, the Disposals were still making noise.
Yeah, that was line I took from a homeless guy in San Francisco at like 2 o'clock in the morning, but he said the Beatles were still making noise. So we just threw in the Disposals.
Well, yeah, Janice and Jeannie, who were part of our little gang, they had the band The Disposals, and then I started playing drums for them. And it was super, super primitive, and there's just no existing recordings.
These girls that were in the band The Disposals, and they found themselves at some kind of dinner thing. Someone was selling a boat, and George Harrison and Olivia were there. So we kind of put them in with George Harrison, make it a bit mystical, because George Harrison was the mystical one, throwing some lines from a weird homeless dude.
Cool. Janice and Jeannie, no Janet, notice. But yeah, I'm glad they were sort of immortalized as sort of mythical figures.
But that's how we started writing songs like that, because, I mean, it gives you something it creates different pictures in your mind every time you listen. Because when you love a band or an artist, you always kind of want to get into their world. So you're always you're presenting your world, even if it's all mixed up in this bizarre,
so you think the more abstract,
like singing about yourself and your personal life is so boring to me.
I think a lot of the audience was confused. Part of our audience went away. I mean, there's no question about it. And I mean, that's what Play My Song's about, is really about, the frustration that Jeff had about the punk rock community just not wanting to accept anything within this very rigid standard. Jeff played a tambourine, and one of these punk guys was like, there you go, the band's gone to hell. And that's where Play My Tambourine and There You Go line comes from. So it was, and their open minds are really so closed. It was basically talking about how the punk rock community, which used to be, about, just pretty much anyone who was very different, it was this kind of, club of freaks, in a way, became this very rigid, you have to look this way, you have to dress this way, you have to listen to this type of music, which was everything that, I know that Jeff and Steve were trying to get away from. And I think they just came a moment, it was like, look, we like what we like. Who cares if this group thinks it's cool, this group thinks it's not cool, or, we're just gonna make our own thing. And that's how Neurotica came about. And it was taking all these influences, and a lot of them from the 70s, but a lot of them from the 60s too. And, a lot of it's metal, but also bubblegum, and putting all this together, and a certain audience just grew out of that and responded to that, and particularly in Seattle and the Pacific Northwest, they kind of like it all made sense to them.
You know, Neurotica came out, I think it was '87, and so Chris and Kim and I, we that was one of the records that a lot of the Seattle bands were really influenced by.
Neurotica. I don't know, that groundbreaking record for me. That was everything. It was punk and it was metal and it was everything good. And so that record was really influential to me.
Everybody had Neurotica album.
Yeah.
It was just one of those records that everyone had.
Yes. It
You know,
totally was.
kind of. It was a kind of record that everybody liked. I think. You know, it was just kind of hit the right. You know, it was just the kind of the right record at the right time. It pretty much, you know, every house party you went to, somebody would have
Yeah,
it
totally.
around that time.
We went up to the Pacific Northwest on the Neurotica record, and May 23rd, 1987, we played at the Tacoma Ballroom, which was this big, dilapidated warehouse in Tacoma, Washington.
It was the first time they came to the Northwest, and it was packed. It was a great show.
It was pretty legendary. The Tacoma show was definitely, it was a pretty legendary show.
We would have liked to have played that show, and I think every band in Seattle at the time really wanted to play that show. So the openers on that were Malfunction, Soundgarden, and Green River, who all got smoked that night by Redd Kross because they're just so good.
You know, I thought we all put on, you know, we all kind of did our best, you know, we all thought we did a really amazing show, and then Redd Kross came on. It's just like, oh yeah, they're the headliners. It's like, we can't top that. Because at the time we were still, you know, figuring out our stage presence and things like that. But they had like the tunes, stage presence, you know, fashion, everything.
So basically that was the whole thing. Like Soundgarden was the heavy, Malfunction was the glam, and Green River was sort of like in between what Soundgarden was doing and what Malfunction was doing. And then Redd Kross was sort of like, you know, the band in LA that was doing, you know, exactly what we wanted to be doing. You know, I was probably like a little bit like, you know, like, because they, you know, they truly were one of our favorite bands on the planet.
We would have been really enthused to play with Redd Kross weeks beforehand. It's like, oh man, we might adjust our set to be a little bit more friendly, meaning maybe we could throw some songs that are more fun. We had no songs that were more fun.
I also remember running into pre-Nirvana guys in the audience. I think they'd started their band but weren't called Nirvana yet. And I remember them saying to me, like, these guys are too happy. Why are they so happy? I don't know, but they're really good and they're kicking your ass right now, aren't they? I seriously think they were jealous, you know?
I think that was an important part of the Neurotica record and the legacy of it, that it kind of
Touched.
touched that community a bit.